If wrestling had a hall of fame for backstage headaches, Ole Anderson would be its founding member. The man wasn't just difficult. He was a living, breathing complication who made promoters want to tear their hair out, and wrestlers wonder if the chair they just caught was coming back to collect. While some wrestlers earned heat in the ring, Ole earned it behind the curtain, and he wasn't shy about making enemies, both with talent and management. Known for stiff matches that felt more like brawls and political moves that could crush a rhino, Ole didn't just ruffle feathers. He plucked out the whole damn wing. If you wanted calm locker rooms, you kept your distance, but if chaos was your game, Ole was the MVP. His reputation for stirring the pot was so intense, even the toughest vets tread lightly around him. He had a knack for turning small disagreements into full-blown backstage wars, leaving a trail of bruised egos and broken alliances wherever he went. This video digs into 5 real backstage grudges that made Anderson a legend for all the wrong reasons, showcasing how his reputation for trouble still echoes in wrestling's corridors today. If Ole Anderson's middle name wasn't Trouble, it should have been Brick. The man didn't just throw chairs, he launched them like they owed him money. One infamous incident saw him take out a fellow wrestler with such ferocity that locker room whispers turned into outright war cries. The victim? A young up-and-comer who asked for a polite change in the match finish. Instead of a simple no, Anderson decided to demonstrate how the business was run, with a steel chair to the back that echoed louder than the crowd's cheers. That's not just sending a message. That's writing a whole damn novel in bruises. Wrestlers learned quickly. Crossing Ole was like shaking hands with a rattlesnake. Sure, it looks polite, but you're probably going to lose a finger. His chair shots became legendary, the kind of punishment that turned friends into sworn enemies overnight. There's a reason people whispered that Anderson was the guy you wanted on your side until you weren't. Behind the scenes, he was less a teammate and more a walking threat. If you wanted calm, steer clear. If you wanted drama, he was the storm. This video digs into the real backstage wars that cemented Ole Anderson's reputation as one of wrestling's most feared and divisive figures, showing how his trail of chaos still echoes through the business today. Ole Anderson didn't just argue over who got the spotlight. He fought like the last slice of pizza was on the line. Known for his political maneuvering, Anderson was a master at turning booking meetings into blood sports. Promoters dreaded scheduling matches with him because Ole played the system like a cheat code. Want a fair shake? Too bad. Anderson twisted the knife, making sure he got the best spots, while everyone else got leftovers. You haven't seen a power trip until you've watched a man argue about where he fits in the card for hours, while everyone else slowly died inside. One promoter reportedly said dealing with Anderson was like negotiating with a grizzly bear who just stubbed his toe. Unpredictable and prone to snapping at anyone nearby. That toe stubbing probably explains why the bear showed up late to meetings just to catch folks off guard. Anderson's political warfare wasn't just about ego, it was a survival tactic. In a business where your spot could make or break your career, Anderson made sure his career was bulletproof, even if it meant stepping on a few necks on the way. If you weren't careful, Ole didn't just elbow you out of the way, he set the whole ring on fire, a promoter once said. For those stuck in his crosshairs, backstage life wasn't a wrestling match, it was a slow, brutal cage fight. Ole Anderson wasn't just a bully with a chair. He was the guy who turned every match into a lesson in pain. Known for his stiff style, wrestlers stepping into the ring with him didn't just prepare for choreography, they braced for punishment. Anderson's moves were less dance and more dent. Multiple locker room stories describe Anderson's refusal to cooperate during matches, deliberately stiffening strikes and holds to assert dominance or settle scores. It wasn't about performance, it was about sending a message. You respect me or you get hurt. That message left more than bruises. It broke friendships and careers. Wrestlers learned fast. Going soft with Anderson meant risking being seen as weak. Going hard meant a real shot back. His stiff approach caused lingering resentment, making him one of the most feared men to share a locker room with. I went in for a friendly match and came out questioning my career choices, one veteran recalled dryly. Promoters often worried about Anderson's style because real injuries meant lost dates and angry fans. But for Anderson, it was less about business and more about respect, earned the hard way. In a world where performance matters, Anderson made sure his reputation was built on pain, and not the scripted kind. Ole Anderson's feud wasn't just with wrestlers, it was with management too, and those battles got downright vicious. Known for refusing to toe the company line, Anderson was the guy who made promoters sweat bullets long before a single bell rang. One story has Anderson flat out challenging a top promoter's authority in front of a packed locker room, turning a routine meeting into a full-scale rebellion. When told to play nice and fall in line, he reportedly snapped, "I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to get paid and fight." That moment wasn't just insubordination, it was a declaration of war. Management quickly learned that trying to control Anderson was like wrestling a bear, if the bear could talk trash and hold grudges for decades. His defiance inspired some wrestlers, but terrified others who knew crossing him meant more than a backstage scolding. It meant career-threatening consequences. Anderson's reputation as a troublemaker wasn't just talk. It was a living, breathing nightmare for management teams. You don't tell Ole what to do. You survive him. In a business built on fragile alliances, Anderson was the grenade tossed into the mix. Never subtle, always lethal. Ole Anderson wasn't content to just stir the pot. He wanted to own the kitchen. In the golden age of wrestling territories, Anderson ran his patch like a dictator who hadn't heard the word compromise. He demanded control over bookings, talent, and even catering menus, because why not? His need for dominance sparked turf wars that spread faster than a locker room flu. Promoters from neighboring territories hated having to negotiate with a guy who treated every conversation like a hostage situation. Wrestlers got caught in the crossfire, forced to pick sides in battles that had nothing to do with their matches, but everything to do with Ole's iron grip. One wrestler reportedly summed it up perfectly. Working in Ole's territory was like walking a tightrope over a pit of vipers, and Ole was the biggest snake. The grudges born from these turf wars weren't just professional, they were personal. Friends turned into sworn enemies, alliances shattered like glass, and backstage politics turned poisonous. Anderson's legacy? A locker room still whispering about the chaos he left behind. You didn't cross Ole unless you wanted your career to come with a warning label. Love him or hate him, Anderson's backstage reign was a masterclass in making enemies, and he played it to perfection. Ole Anderson wasn't just a wrestler, he was a walking warning label. His reputation for turning locker rooms into war zones wasn't accidental, it was a career-long habit. The man didn't just ruffle feathers, he plucked out entire wings and handed the scraps to anyone unfortunate enough to cross him. The problems with Anderson weren't just about his stiff style or his love of throwing chairs, they were about his attitude. He treated the business like it was a personal kingdom and everyone else were mere peasants lucky to share his space. Whether it was bullying younger talent, locking horns with promoters, or manipulating bookings, Anderson had a knack for turning every situation into a powder keg. You want a peaceful locker room? Don't invite Ole. Want drama, chaos, and enough grudges to fuel a dozen careers? He was your guy. His style didn't just break bones, it broke trust. And in wrestling, trust is currency more valuable than any title belt. Many wrestlers who worked with him ended up questioning their life choices, while promoters learned quickly that managing Anderson was like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. Frustrating, messy, and probably impossible. Love him or hate him, Anderson's legacy is a brutal lesson in how one man's ego can poison an entire industry. Wrestling thrived despite him, not because of him. But you can't deny the mark he left, a mark made of bruises, broken friendships, and backstage chaos. If there's one thing you take away from Ole Anderson's story, it's this. Sometimes the toughest battles happen off camera, and Anderson was undefeated in those. If you enjoyed this brutal backstage breakdown, don't just sit there, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss the real stories no one else dares to tell. Trust me, the wrestling world's darker corners need shining lights like this. Stick around, because next time we're diving even deeper into the kind of heat that makes legends and ruins careers.